at 6 a.m. Central African Time. This is the Wednesday edition of Kusile Breakfast Show. Good morning. Amongst our leading stories this morning, government has responded to the shortage of teachers in some schools and has authorized the hiring of 62 deputy head teachers. 26 of the posts are for deputy head teachers in primary schools and 36 are for deputy head teachers in primary schools. Good morning. I'm Lungelele Makakula.
Quite notable, Lungelele, is that a lot of these head teachers, in fact, all of them will be hired in permanent positions, which is very fulfilling to know because that has been the major outcry. People do not want to get temporal positions, particularly in the education sector. And on another note, a development we will be tracking on the program today. The Deputy Prime Minister's Office is launching the gender policy and strategy for ending violence. And that's quite notable because approximately 1 in 3 females have experienced some form of sexual abuse by the age of 18 years, and 48% of women report to have experienced some form of sexual violence in their lifetime. So we are interested in learning about this gender policy and mainstreaming this kind of information into community. We will be joined by people from the Deputy Prime Minister's Office to further engage on this development.
Yeah, we'll also be joined by Senior Communications Officer from STVA, Nomcebo Malinga, to talk about inspections. They'll go door by door, we'll check a compliance. The TV License Department continues to deliver on its mandate, which is to collect current and outstanding TV license fees, as well as enforce the law as stipulated in the Swaziland Television Authority Act of 1983. So to ensure that the set goals are accomplished by the department through conducting nationwide activations. Inspections wesifundeni saselubonjeni lapho abantu bangena khona likhaya ngelikhaya asichazela abantu ke nomcebo malinga lomhla ekseni at 6:30.
Yeah, kusekuseni ngwadelo muhle kulesikhathanyana sibuke ke tindzaba letigijima embili emaphephandzabeni elive.
Alright, good morning. Welcome back. Sibuka tindzaba thamba embili ephephandzabeni Eswatini, Times of Eswatini. Sibuka lapha lamba embili kunesithombe lapha sebantfu laba kuma wheelchairs kanti sihloko sithi TLC will distribute wheelchairs at all 59 Tinkhundla centers. Kulenyele hamba embili, some eMaswati in exile hit back. Chiefs offside on elections ban, say it's everyone's constitutional right to participate in elections or not. Kulenyele hamba embili, cop hit by car dies at roadblock. Kulenyele hamba embili, Nyati tells court we paid 120 million emalangeni for MB Veni 200 workers benefits. Kulenyele hamba embili, on page 4, government to hire 62 deputy head teachers.
The leading stories, good Times of Eswatini, good Temidlalo. Timely boost ahead of CAF campaign as a Real AM release kudos to Mamba to enjoy DSTV Premiership side's benefits while playing for Eswatini side. On another one, the PLE rakes in over 0.8 million emalangeni in gate takings as the Premier League of Eswatini has collected close to 1 million in gate takings in the year under review. On another one, Forces Derby in league opener. This one speaks to champions Green Mamba that are set to begin their title defense against last season's runner-up Young Buffaloes. Kanti-ke lenye lehamba embili qhamuka ngaphandle kwakuleli ekhulumisa football star Neymar, who sells over 130 million pounds per year in Saudi switch.
All right, and your leading stories on the Eswatini Observer. India celebrates independence. India celebrates here their 77th Independence Day. And the news making headlines, minister reported for campaigning. Minister said to be already distributing food parcels. Letting it hamba embili, TSC announces 62 deputy head teachers vacancies. Church bodies agree with chief. And also on page 4, speeding car runs over a traffic cop.
Kutemidlalo, Eswatini Observer, but the old habits die hard as top official wanted out at Wanderers. This follows Ndofo's election from team. Full story is found on the back of the Eswatini Observer Sports. Kanzige lenyele hamba embili Chippa hold Pirates. This one comes from South Africa, where Orlando Pirates lead Chippa United 1-0 at halftime of their DStv Premiership clash last night. Le Kamuga Esifunzeni sase Shiselweni Singizini fly to second spot as the Shiselweni based ensemble Singizini Hotspurs have jumped to second position of the Momo Cup voting. Mkondo boost for Mamba Skali doubtful. In Zabagalena Lekulumisa MTN Premier League champions Green Mamba that will leave the country tomorrow for Mozambique, where they will face off with União Desportivo do Songo in their preliminary stage of the CAF Champions League.
All right, it's 6 minutes after 6. As battle temagetse nasibuya sathatha indaba tethu Eswati.
Umsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV utibophelele kuhlonipha nekulandzela umgomo wetekusakata loweluswe libandla letekuchumana eveni.
Ngephansi kwalomgomo sitimisele kusakata tindzaba letiya ngaleso sikhatsi tindzaba letide emagama lacosheme letitsembekile letitsintsa tonke tinhlangothi naletisebaleni
kusukela kutepolitiki, tetemphilo, tekulima, tetinkantolo netemhlaba wonke jikelele siniletsela tindzaba njengoba tinjalo ngaleso sikhatsi letenteka ngaso.
Kanzi kulomsakato siphindze sikulethele lonke luhlobo lwetemidlalo kusuka emidlalweni welibhola letinyawo kuye emidlalweni ledlalelwa ematafuleni kanye naleto letiqhamuka ngaphandle kwakuleli.
Leti tindzaba lowutiletselwa ngumsakazo wetithombe iEswatini TV.
Right, it's 8 minutes after 6. Welcome back. Asesithathe indaba talapha ekhaya indvuna ihliko letekulima Jabulani Mabuza setfule Howard Mbuyisa njengemcondzisi lomusha wesikhwama sekuthuthukisa tekulima i-Agriculture Development Fund. Indvuna ithi lo mcondzisi lomusha unemsebenzi wekukhulisa umkhicito wekudla eveni kunciphe kudla lokuthengwa ngaphandle kwakuleli.
Litiko letekulima ngenyanga yakholwane kulomnyaka lisukumise isikhwama lesihlose ukuthuthukisa tekulima iEswatini Agriculture Development Fund. Emhlanganweni nebetindzaba emahhovisini lelitiko ngalesibili, indvuna yalo lelitiko Jabulani Mabuza yetfule umcondzisi lomusha walesikhwama Howard Mbuyisa wamniketa umsebenzi wekubambisana nemaswati etinhlangosini letahlukene tekulima kute tekulima titfutfuke lapha eveni.
Sitawumemetela ke babe Mbuyisa Howard ngoba ukuthi senguye ke director wale fund kusukela nje lo sikhuluma nyalo sinibikela sesibheke ukuthi yavele aphathe ipheni asebenze Mbuyisa ke inhlanhla yethu noma ngawuthi inhlanhla yemaswati ube involved kakhulu nayakhiwa le fund so ngilokunye nje lesikubuke ngathi it may work well for the farmers because we understand naye bekayingcenye yayo yonke le process nasicala.
Lo mcondzisi sekatibongela uthi umsebenzi wekucala kwakha imigomo yekusebenta kuhlelwe kahle ukuthi ngitiphi tinhlangosi tekulima letitawubekwa embili kute live linciphise kudla lelikuthenga ngaphandle.
Litiko lesichuba nje ukuthi sibafana litasibambisa sisachubeka nawo lo msebenzi bese sebenta nalo litiko ngomsebenzi walo lona. Ubuke kona ukuthi ema-plans la khona ekuthuthukisa i-agriculture sector ngabe indlela letingcono tekuthi kufandeke dingaba njani so siyethemba ukuthi lawo ma-plans kutaba ngo latawuchubeka informe ukuthi yini lokutawubanjwa ku-prioritizwe sisasebenta lo msebenzi.
Indvuna ibe seyiniketa lo mcondzisi emaviki lamathatfu ukuthi asebente le migomo bese siyacala sive semaswati sifaka ticelo tekwesekela ngetimali. Kanti kuletingungu talesikhwama kunemali letigisi letingemashumi nakutsatfu temalangeni 53 million emalangeni. Etindzabeni teEswatini TV kubika Samkelisiwe Khoza nginaSikhumbuzo Dlamini eMbabane.
Mapalane wePhalamende Benedict Xaba uncoma umsebenzi lomuhle lowendiwe ePhalamende elishumi nakunye. Uphinzike ukhutsata eMaswati ukuthi akhethe kahle ngoba iPhalamende ingumgogodla welive. Xaba uthi njengaloko umhlati nge-26 kule nyanga lesetulu kubhekeke ukuthi kube nelukhetho lesigaba sekucala ema-primary elections. eMaswati ke abokhetha bantfu labangeke babhebhetele tintfo letingenta ukuthi kukhinyabeteke incubekela phambili yelakuleli.
Lumapolano wePhalamende Benedict Xaba uchaza kabanti ngemsebenzi lentiwe iPhalamende elishumi nakunye. Xaba uthi le Phalamende emitsetfweni lebeyikhankanya lebekadzi elikhulu yapasisa lengemashumi lesitfupha yadvonsa ngemsila kanemithatfu yaphelelwa sikhatsi. Xaba uchubeka ukuthi kuma-international instrument yawapasisa onke lebekadzi ali-15 bese emigomeni lebekadzi li-11 kwaphasa leli-10. Wase uthi kungaleso sizatfu atsi le Phalamende isebente kahle kakhulu. Xaba uchubeka uchaza ngebumcoka bekukhetsa abantu labatoyisa live embili.
Ngingabekisa nje ukuthi ne-development oyibonako kulo lonke lelive athindwa ngiyo lama bills masakhetha kabi for 5 years le live lingashona phasi. iPhalamende ingumgogodla welive, so uma singakhethi kahle le live lingashona phasi, naleyo nkundla yakho ingashona phasi for 5 years kungabonakali ukuthi kwentekani. So siyethemba ke sive sesitawusebenta silethe bomake nabo babe labacotho ePhalamende.
Mapolane wePhalamende uthi itinsaya leti dibele nato iPhalamende elishumi nakunye tifaya ekhatsi umkhuhlane i-COVID-19 simo lesacubuka labe singasiko lesikahle eveni kanye nekushona kwalabo bemalunga ePhalamende kanye netimbunga etintsabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla inasimuva shongo sePhalamende.
Libandla lelukhetfo kanye nemincele tinkhundla lithi labo labangenele likhetfo batovumeleka kutsi batsatse likhefu yemisebentini uma iPhalamende seyivulwe ngalokusemtsetfweni. Lokho ke kuvetwe ngiloluleka ngetemtsetfo kuleli bandla Mbuso Dlamini ngesikhatsi leli bandla lihlangene nabo babetkhulu kanye nebantfwana benkhosi labo ke lababuke imimango labangephansi kwesifundza sakaManzini.
Loluleka ngemtsetfo ebandleni lelikhetfo kanye nemincele yetinkundla Mbuso Dlamini uyacacisa ukuthi kungani labangenele lelikhetfo bangavunyelwa ukuthi bangabi semsebentini kwamanje.
Kude ePhalamende nalo kanti kuyi-requirement ukuthi lo muntu nakaye amelela likhetho kuze bangamkhokhi laba inani bakhe funa usayiphatha leli book of absence. Wena mqashi kahulumeni uwe umvumelele ukuthi akaya umelela likhetho njengecela kwakhe. But naso kumsha le-constitution ithi for the duration of parliament. Losho ukuthi iPhalamende sikhuluma ngayiphi iPhalamende nesekhaya. Losho sisikhuluma ngale lentaba. Nangabe tawucala ngamashi sikhuluma ngamashi. Nangabe tawucala ngaFebruary sikhuluma ngaFebruary. Nayo ke duration of parliament immediately kumenyetelwa ukuthi iPhalamende seyivuliwe ngalokusemthethweni iyakhipha in the level of absence yakho ukuthi seyaqala kenyalo because kuthithiwe for the duration of parliament. But for purposes of ukuthi umelele ke ube ngilokhethi ube ngumnconywa uhambe uyocampaign uhambe wente bonke. Uyathinga lokuthi uyiphathe because the elections act ithi sekufuna ukuthi ibe khona.
Umphathi sifundza sakaManzini sikhulu Gija sincoma libandla lelikhetfo kanye nemincele yetinkundla ekufundisa bobe betikhulu ngemitsetfo lengamile lelikhetfo lolichubekako.
Babalikhetho basebentela ukuthi kunetiseke labanikati balokhetho. Banikati belikhetho ngulamaswati kwabo. Ayakhala lokunye sibona naku bese ke sebalungisa ukuthi ke akuhambe njengoba bashiye.
Ngemsombuluko lelibandla lihlangene abaholi bemango esifundzeni sakaHoho kanti kubheke ukuthi lihlangane nalabo lababuye elibonjeni kanye nasesifundzeni saseshiselweni etintsabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla titfombe titfolakele ebandleni lelikhetfo kanye nemincele yetinkundla ehlangothini letekuchumana.
Lonxusele live lendiya kuleli Ram and Prajat uthi live lendiya litimisele kubambisana nemave ledlelana nawo kufaka ekhatsi live laseswatini kuthi ke athuthukise tingoni letahlukene temnotfo. Lokomshana bekakhuluma ngesikhatsi sive sendiya lesihlala kuleli sihlangene kugubha ilanga lamazibuse lelive lendiya.
दिल भर के लिए दिलदार है हम दुश्मन के लिए तलवार है हम.
Live lendiya latfola amazibuze kuhulumende weMangisi ngeminyaka wa-1947 mhla til-15. Ngalesibili sive sendiya lesihlala lapha eveni sihlangene nalonxusele live lendiya kuleli Ram and Prasad kukubhalelanga lapho bahlabele khona ingoma yesive naletinye tingoma letimcoka emlandweni welive leNdiya bambimbisa umjeka wabo kukhombisa bomcoka balelanga kuso sive seNdiya. Loncuselele live kuleli Ram and Prasad uthi live leNdiya solo latfola amazibuse selithutfukela balwa kumave lathutfuke kakhulu emhlabeni kanti liphokophele kubambisa nalamanye emave ukuthi nawo athuthuke.
India had hosted a voice of the global south, which is basically to give voice to all the countries who never found their voices heard in the G20. As far as Eswatini is concerned, we have India always believes in building its soft power. We have this year given about nearly 100 scholarships under various schemes of the government of India like the iTech, the ICCR.
Sive seNdiya lebesincenya lomcimbi sivete kuthi lelanga lisho kuthini kubo basive saseNdiya.
Our freedom fighters, Mahatma Gandhi, Motilal Nehru, everybody fought for our freedom. We got freedom and we are enjoying the freedom now.
Being independent in such a way that the economy of our country has gone well through the roof. Okay, it's taken us to one place to another.
All Indian peoples, we are meeting together and we are hugging together and celebrate to the India like singing the song and dancing.
Lilanga lonyaka sive seNdiya siligubha ngaphansi kwesiqubulo lesithi live leNdiya embili ngaso sonke isikhathi kanti ndvunankulu welive leNdiya Narendra Modi ngalelanga ukhutsate kuthula nekubambisana kwemave nekunakekeleka kwamalungelo awonke wonke. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Samkelisiwe Khoza kunasikhumbuzo Dlamini eMbabane.
Tifo letingatsatselwana letifaka ekhatsi sifo sashukela uma tingakalapheki tigcine titsikabeta ingqondo. Lokho kuvetwe ngilobukele tifo etiko letemphilo Vusi Shabangu ngesikhatsi lelitiko licecesha abonesi ngetifo tashukela letahlukene kuteke bakhone kuniketa sive lusito lwetemphilo lolufanele.
Litiko letemphilo lithi tifo letingatsatselwana letifaka ekhatsi sifo sashukela ne-high tifo letinganakekeleki kahle nesive seMaswati sinelwahlo oluncane ngale tifo. Leli tiko ke libe selicala lihlelo lokucecesha abonesi ngale tifo ngeminyaka wa 2018 kude bakhone kuphopola nekufundzisa sive ngato. Leli tiko libe selihlangana neti-70 tetempilo kuchubeka nalomsebenzi ngalesibili bekucecesha tona ti-70 tetempilo. Lobuke tifo letingatsatselwana kuleli tiko Vusi Shabangu uthi letifo tiyingoti kakhulu uma tingakanakeke.
Insaya lenkulu lendzaba yetifo letingatsatselwana even kakhulu ngalendlela ethi siyabona ukuthi ngeminyaka tiyanyuka letinombolo kakhulu. Na ukhuluma nje ngashukela uthola ukuthi kubantu labasihlanu labafile munye wabo kuconza ngcovelo ukuthi ubuliwe sifo sashukela. Na ubuka bantu labagcine bajujwa tinyawo noma ke labagcine balimala emehlo bangasabona uthola ukuthi ukhona shukela netruth labantu labo bebanalo shukela bangadi lokuthi baphila nawo. Sekubonakala ngathi akasabona emehlweni nasithi sihlola shukela sikhanza ukuthi shukela vele usesimende sibucayi. So leligalelo linengakhulu umkhulu lomonakalo. Dinengi netinkinga tabo babe uthola ukuthi leti etindzaweni tekuphila kwabo sexual kwakuthi ekhaya akasakhona ebudlelwaneni bakhe kuphila kahle uthola ukuthi kunabo BP bachakela.
Manje leli tiko seliceceshe bonesi labangemakhulu lasihlanu nemashumi lasithupha 560 ngetifo letingatsatselwana kanti leli tiko libika ukuthi isifo sashukela sihlasela munye kubamfu labasihlanu lapha eveni. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Samkelisiwe Khoza kunasikhumbuzo Dlamini eMbabane.
Inhlangano yakamhlaba UNFPA icale umkhankaso lapho khona ikhutsata abantu labasha ukuthi bafake imibono yabo ngetinkinga ke lababhekana nato ikakhulu kude kunakekeleka kwengqondo nekukhula kwakhe umuntu lomusha. Waxhumanisa lenhlangano nesivezo lakhe Nsibande uthi sizathu salomkhankaso kudama kunciphisa kwanza kwekuhlukubeteka kwabantu labasha.
Umxhumanisi walenhlangano Zwelakhe Nsibande uchaze ukuthi lo mkhankaso uphinze ukhulumise tindzaba letiphathelene nekuhlela kubo bantfu labasha besifazane, tindzaba tekunakekeleka kwabo bantfu labasha labasetetfele, kanye netindlela tekuthatha kwekuvikela ligciwane le-HIV.
Lelithuba lelivelile libitwa nge-Mental Health SRH Hack lesingathi yinkundla la kuleti tekuchumana lapho khona bantu labasha bangafaka khona imibono yabo yebuchwepheshe lengathi itawusita kulungisa tingqinamba bantu labasha lababhekana nato ikakhulu letibuke tekunakekeleka kwengcondo kanye netekukhula kwemuntu lomusha esingathi SRH. So longathi kubangelele ukuthi kube nalo simemetelo sekuthi bantu labasha bavete lama innovations abo ukuthi singathi nasibuka kusuka nje lebo 2020 kutangalanga vele diningi letinto bantu labasha bebabhekana nato fana ekhathi ukuthi nabasebasha bakhulelwe kusengafika isikhathi labanye balahlekelwe imisebenzi.
Nsibande uphindze wachaza ukuthi labamfu labasha batocale babe nemhlangano sikolwa lapho batabe bachushiswa ngetindlela tekusebentisa buchwephesha nekuthi emva kwaloko batawukhangisa ngemivo labeta nabo ngekuthi umuvo lohamba embili utotfola lithuba lekwesekeleka ngetimbasha. Etindzabeni kubika sebenele mthethwa Anamuzi Mkhonda e-UN House eMbabane.
Bafundzi belibanga leliphakeme kuleli batawucala ngqa kubhala luhlolo lolusabukwa ukuthi lungasebenta yini pilot lweminyaka lemine kusuka ngenyanga yemphala kuye enyangeni yeLweti lonyaka lolwatiwa ngele Eswatini General Certificate Secondary Education Program. Mabhalane welibandla lelibukele luhlolo lwangaphandle kuleli Dr. Mandlenkosi Dlamini uthi kufunza ngalolu hlelo kutawuniketa ematfuba abafundzi bakuleli ukuthi bangene melula emakolishi emhlabeni.
Eminyakeni lophelile litiko letemfundvo limemetele kwekuthi lolu hlelo lwekuthi bafundze etikolweni letiphakeme bafundze iminyaka lemine lutawubukwa ukuthi lungasebenta yini etikolweni leting-32 kuleli. Mabhalane ka-Exams Council Dr. Mandlenkosi Dlamini uchaza kabanti ngeluhlolo lwalonyaka ngaphansi kwalolu hlelo.
Live lithi kutawufika isikhathi la khona sithi labantwana e-high school abangahlali 5 years but abakhona ukuhlala 4 years bese kuthi lo mnyaka wesi-5 they should be able to do what we call a higher school living certificate. Lesitawenda lo ukuthi bakhona ukuyofunda ngabe ngiliphi live la emhlabeni labafunda lo yethunyalo which is from na year 1 year 2 year 3 year 4 so laba year 2 batawubhala sithi ke checkpoint exam. The checkpoint exam ke isethwe ngithi as Exams Council as an organization that is responsible for exam in the country. So sitawusethele emaphepha ke noma ama-subject lang 4 which is English language, Siswati, mathematics as well as science thing 4. Lo mbuto ke uthi letinye tawende kaningi letinye tifundo tabe sethethwa ke ngama-panels nama-subject associations sebabhala ke labantwana bethu khona ukuthi ke kusuka ngama-progression test lawo. For the pilot exams, I think for now, for this year, government is taking care of the cost ale exam that we've produced.
Ngekusho kwe-Exams Council lolu hlolo lwalolu hlelo lutawubhalwa abafunzi baka grade 9 kanti kusinye sifundza lolu hlelo lwentiwa tikolwa letisiphohlongo. Bafundzi kubhekeke ukuthi babhadale imali leng-100 emalangeni yalabo labatabagadza nababhala lolu hlolo. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelisiwendla ngamandla kunasimuva Shongwe ezulwini.
Kuqinisekisa ukuthi bomake badlala inzima yabo ngalokuphelele elikhethweni lwalonyaka. Lihhovisi leliphini landvunankhulu libambisene netinhlangothi letitsindzekako libafundzisa kabanti ngemitsetfo lengamele likhetfo. Akhuluma ngesikhatsi kufundziswa labomake esibayeni Logic Mathapha lobukete bulili kuleli hhovisi nomzamo Dlamini uthi labomake babuya etifundzeni letahlukene kuleli.
Ekusebenteni kwethu asibandlululi nabo babe titabakhona nato tindlela takhona tekucocisana but nje ikakhulu siboke ukuthi bomake uyuhanze vele ukuthi liningi labo ngibona baparticipate kakhulu elikhethweni nathi letinye nje tindzaba tenfutfuko ikakhulu so ke labanye nje nalese ngikhohle kukusho ukuthi labanye bomake lithango ukhanza ukuthi bayacelwa ukuthi abe ngalajane wemuva kufuneka athi ayenda leyo responsibility leyo abe ati ukuthi yini lekufanele ayende yini lekufanele angakayendi umthetho uthi umephi ngalapho.
Lubambe kuba ngusihlalo wenhlangano yelithangu Dumisile Sigwane uthi bomake bebadzinga kuceceshwa ngelikhetfo lwalonyaka.
Isikhathi lesiningi
hulumende wakithi wakhiwa cishe ngabobabe kakhulu. Nabakhona bomake kuye kube babili bathathu.
Isekela lalobuke emahhovisi aka-United Nations Development Program kuleli David uthi besekele lo mhlangano sikolwa ngoba bayakholelwa ekutheni bomake kufanele bangene nabo etikhundleni tebuholi.
When you have women in the parliament, you are bound to have policies that are balanced.
Ngekusho kwembiko we-United Nations bomake benda 50.4% wesive seMaswati. Bomake labakhethwa kule phalamende lephumile baba babili nje kuphela kanti umthetho-sisekelo wakuleli weminyaka wanga-2005 uthi kufanele babe ngu-30% bomake ephalamende. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelson Dlangamandla kunasimuva Shongwe kumathapha.
Kutemidlalo umqeqeshi welicembu leGreen Mamba Ernest Mavuso uthi kuba ngekho kwemidlalo isabelonzinisa emlenteni wekucala endzebeni ye-CAF Champions League lapho khona batawutfolana eTulu ne-FC Songo yase-Eveni lase-Mozambique kutabalimata kakhulu. Mavuso bekakhuluma nalomsakato ngesikhathi lelicembu litolinga i-Correctional Services Mathapha kanti-ke lo mdlalo utawudlalwa kule mpelasonto khona eMaputo eMozambique.
Licembu leGreen Mamba lichubeka nemalungiselelo emidlalo walo wendzebe ye-CAF Champions League lapho khona kubhekeke ukuthi litfolane yeTulu ne-FC Songo yase-Eveni lase-Mozambique. Umqeqeshi wayo iGreen Mamba Ernest Mavuso uthi kuba ngekho kwemidlalo isabelonzinisa lolimele etfolweni kutabalimata kakhulu kulomdlalo.
Badlali labo kuma-injuries baya-recover though. Sikhali, Magwegwe, yeah, no. Ngingasho ukuthi hayi labo ma-chances are very slim ukuthi bangadlala the first match lesiyakuyidlala due to ama-injuries, but nje-ke i-game lelandzelako ngicathi badabe sebaready. Kuyasilimata because sekufuna ukuthi sende ama-modifications even in midfield because i-presence yakhe up front beyisiniketa a different dimension ku-midfield on how we want to play, but nasekungasuye sekufuna ishintshe.
Njabulo Thwala lodlalela leli cembu uthi bawutfolile umlayeto loqhamuka kubaphathi balo kuthi badlale ngekutimisela.
Kanti umswa ukuthi sifake amandla kakhulu kuwo konke ama-preparations abe kahle noma inamba tihlala tikhona kepha nje akusikho lesikubuke kakhulu kepha nje umgcoka sibuke ukuthi sibuye nema-results la positive siwine lo mdlalo.
Lo mdlalo utawudlalwa ngelisonto nayishayile insimbi yesithathu Ntsambama khona eMaputo eMozambique kanti kutabe kudlalwa umlende wekucala kulendzebe. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelson Dlangamandla umbiko uhlanganiswe nguFabrice Musonera kumathapha.
Inhlangano ledlalisa imidlalo yematubane lapha events imemedele ukuthi ingijimi yakuleli Sibusiso Mathenjwa kutawuba nguye yedvana lokubhekeke ukuthi yamelele live emidlalweni yema-World Athletics Championships letawubanjelwa eveni lase-Hungary. Ingijimi Mathenjwa icele eMaswati ukuthi ayibeke emthandazweni asaya kule midlalo. Le midlalo itawucala ngeMgcibelo mhla ka-19 iphele mhla ka-27 kule nyanga lesetulu. Kwelo muhle betingako tindzaba tekucala talo muhla lesikuphathele tona sibahlo letimakethe sitawubuya sichubeke nelihlelo.
Welcome back. The TV License Department continues to deliver on its mandates, which is to collect current and outstanding TV license fees, as well as enforce the law as stipulated in the Swaziland Television Authority Act of 1983, so to ensure that the set goals are accomplished by the department through conducting nationwide activations. TV license uyaqala nama-inspections awo esifundeni saselubonjeni lapho abantu bangena likhaya ngelikhaya bahlola ukuthi bantu bayabhadala imvele lo mthelo. I'm joined by ESTVA Senior Communications Officer Nomcebo Malinga to elaborate on this. I think lesifuna kuva nje ukuthi what is their target on this exercise. Good morning. Siyabonga Nomcebo ukuthi ube nathi. I think mhlawumbe singangena nje kuyo le inspections. I think ungaba nje kuva ukuthi sithole clarity on why we should pay TV license, because there's been a lot of questions kuningi lokukhala kwebamfu ukuthi mhlawumbe thina labanye sidina nama TVs lamanye ethu ahlala nje. What is the emphasis on paying ukubhadala kwe TV license?
Thank you very much for your question, and very good morning to yourself and to the viewers at home. Namuhla sikhuluma ngadodindzaba TV license, and we do get quite a number of questions, around TV license. But nje, the long and short of it all is that le TV license ingumthetho njengoba ushito ukuthi kunale broadcast bill ya 1983. Let's data go clearly lokuthi statutory ukuthi anyone or anything lone gadget whatsoever lekhona ukukhokha sithombe fanele ukuthi kube ne-license loyibhadelako. Singacishe siyifananise ke ngokuthi mawubona nje mangabe kubhadalwa boka SRA mabakoleka embana akho ama-charges akhona kuyafanana lo mthetho lokuthi you need to be paying 180 singiswazi TV lokuthi utokhona ukuthi sebatfolele sithombe emakhaya. Lokuningi lesikubonile on the ground lokuthi bantu basuke bamatanise i-TV license ne-content. I-TV license mbambamba sithi uyibhadalelani, you are actually paying for that signal that goes to your gadget, connects to your gadget, bese soyakhona uthola leyo signal noma uthola leso sithombe lofuna kusibukela. And lama gadgets lawo they cut across. It could be your television set, it could be your DVDs bangabe asakhona, but yet because other people have them. If I cut it myself, I haven't gotten rid of it. Other people now are consuming content, on their cell phones. So lama gadgets lawo we really need to understand lokuthi vele mawunayo isebenda, you need to pay lo 180 emalangeni. Njengoba usho kusilabanye ke bayakhala bathi i-TV yami ngisebenzisa noma seyafa. Lokuthi unayo le TV fanele ukuthi ubhadale, but what you need to do is uma ngabe ukhanza ukuthi ke ayisasebenzi kufanele ukuthi uvele ema-office naka TV license lapho khona ungababikela ukuthi my television set ayisebenzi. Bakhona ke ukuthi bende ema-arrangements ukuthi ukhone lokuthi bangakuhambeli leyo TV license because vele your gadget is not working. It's very imperative lokuthi vele the public mababona ukuthi they do have leyo TV whatever source abayisebenzisa ukuthwala isithombe lokuthi abasho baphume basho lokuthi ke le gadget leyo ayisebenzi. But other than that, it is the law, Lulu. Every citizen on a television set has to pay 180 emalangeni.
I think sisakhuluma nje ngala gadgets nomceba. I think a few years ago ning TV license nangetela ukuthi it's not just only the TV lekumele sibhadalele, there are also other devices such as boskutshana, perhaps mhlawumbe ama decoders and any other devices. I think mhlawumbe ngiloku uchazelele sive lokuthi kahle kahle ukuthi indlela lomthetho ngalokuthi vele nalamanye ama devices nawo kumele siwathelele ukuthi abita malini. Is it lo 180 mhlawumbe ngibekisa for skutshana noma mhlawumbe seyimali leseyehlisiwe?
For Kusile, as long as kwi gadget, it's 180 emalangeni. Ngoba bona asibuke nalokuthi le device lo receiver ngayo ukuthi injani. As long as it is a device, lekhona kokuniketa that visual, you are expected to pay lo 180 emalangeni. It's just a cut across fee. So bantu vele need to understand, and I feel we still need to do a various education as Eswatini TV. Siphume to the public. Sibachazele kahle hle ukuthi it's not just your TV lesikhuluma ngayo. Sikhuluma na emagadgets lahlukahlukene njengoba nje ushito ubala boskutshana ubala ema decoders. Those equipment or those particular equipments, that is what see lokufaka lesithombe sakho emakhaya. So imperative lokuthi ba understand lokuthi mase sikhuluma ngale license kufaka onke lama gadgets ekhaya.
Okay. So nasibuka nje compliance since mhlambe 2017 solo nje libandla laqala mhlambe lento lomsebenzi we-educator likhambisa lwadi esiveni ngekumcoka bekubhadala i-TV license. Ingabe vele mhlambe nasibuka the level of compliance, ingabe vele sive siyanhlangabezana vele i-TV license bayakhona lokubhadala. Akuphi lama gaps?
Emaswati lavelile akhona amaswati lavelako labafika babhadala i-TV license yabo ya 180 emalangeni. And ke umsebenzi usasemningi ukuthi siphume la ngaphandle kwecala kwentiwe lama inspections. Sitawubona ukuthi lama TV noma lama gadgets la ngaphandle mangapi. And fanele siphume sing-Eswatini TV siyofundzisa. Singene siphume ko onke ema communities la khona kangwane sibafundzise ngalenzaba yokuthi kunalama gadgets e-cards. And vele it's an obligation ukuthi bayibhadale leyo TV license. So in terms of compliance, we are expecting the numbers to grow. I will just make an example. A couple of months ago, baga TV license bacwele emanzini wonke around the CBD area. Lapho khona babangena baphuma kule titolo letithengisa wona lama TV nalama gadgets lesikhuluma ngawo to make sure lokuthi bayabhadalwa yini. Ngoba naye lo nesitolo esithengisa leyo TV kufanele understand lokuthi lo muntu makafika athi utothenga i-TV ya 5000 ngiyabhekisa fanele ukuthi angaphumi esitolo angamshi 180 emalangeni while i-TV license. We are hoping ukuthi with this exercise that's coming up from the 16th to the 25th loku the TV license team iyahamba iya ku Sugar Belt area like Bosimonye nasemhlume siyathemba ukuthi batokhona ukuthi bathole at least 90% of the population that side look bakhulumisa and kwendwe lama door-to-door inspections so that we try and encourage people or even be close to them ukuthi bakhona kubhadala lakithi direct.
So is there a particular reason you decided to start at the Lubombo region? Mhlambe perhaps khona leni kubonile ukuthi vele inombolo lenkhulu yebamfu ba kuleso sifundza ababhadale. Kuye kanje ukuthi nikhethe Lubombo manje nikhethile nje.
It's an ongoing exercise. Njengoba I mentioned ukuthi babakamanzini lapho bacwele khona. Bangena baphuma ema-license inspectors ethu aka-TV license. So lokho nje this is a continuation. So nyalo sebahamba sebaya ku Bomhlume naseSimunye. So this is just going as an ongoing exercise. Abasuka eMhlume I'm sure batokumbe babuye again towards the whole origin. Baqhubeke bakoleke leyo TV license. So this is just a process that is just being rolled out. Ngasikwakhona by the end of the day fanele ukuthi sibe sihambe Eswatini wonke.
So manende lama inspections yini kahle kahle lena lentabe nihlola nomcebo lokuthi nje mhlambe ngiyabekisana nikhanza move ukuthi vele solo akaza nje sakawubhadale lo mthelo. What actions will be taken against that person? Mhlambe nitamgcwalisisa liform ukuthi salacala kubhadala noma mhlambe nitambopha kutewendekani vele manikhanza ukuthi aka comply.
Kungakho lokuthi vele lokho comply ngalomthetho unfortunately vele kokhona ukuthi uyaboshwa ngoba ngumthetho lesikhuluma ngayo. So what happens kwelama license inspections ikhona le leniency kumbe Eswatini TV lanayo ekubambisana nama customers ethu. So mangabe kumbe bayafika betha lama door-to-door inspections, what they do is the first question really is to ask ukuthi how many gadgets do you have in the house? Ngoba udakhanza ukuthi labanye banabo 2 ema gadgets ngoba wakhanza ukuthi linge ise kitchen noma ise sitting room or in the bedroom. So that's what we need, and then also to collect a database. Yaga TV license lokuthi ke bangakhi lama TVs la khona within that particular area. So that's how really it works. So that is why nje baphuma bangene bahambe baye emakhaya. So bangasabi sibe siyasicela lokuthi ababona TV license inspector angconcotha emnyango athi atovusela atobuta lama questions noma kumbe atobuta ukuthi license yakho ingabe up to date yini. We encourage emaswati ukuthi ke please be honest. Shano kuti usangakabhadali, they are able to register you, and then we are also able to give you that leniency. Lokuthi ke maybe stakuniketa inyanga or 2 ukuthi ukhona kubhadala i-TV license yakho. Hiding unga adhere will not help, because at some point vele kutawuphumela ebaleni ukuthi nginomcebo malinga angayibhadali license ema records atawuvela lapho ke masesivela kuwe ngoba phela sewubosolo ubhacile sekutawungena nomthetho lapho khona lifaka kathi ukuthi ke nako sokhanza ukuthi uyaboshwa noma ubhadala leyo fine.
Okay. Yeah. Njengoba sathi nje nomcebo ukuthi vele sekunama scammers bamthu benda bucala lobuningi la ngaphandle, and they'll take this opportunity mhlambe nabo bathi babantu labasoka TV license bangene door to door. Ingabe mhlambe how do we differentiate mhlambe umove lo scammer nalo yelo soka TV license yini mina lengidayibona ukuthi vele lo no umflo soka TV license ngakhona communicate information yami.
Okay, so tell the public it's very important. It's a corrupt world that we live in today. But Emma licensed inspectors aid from njengoba nje aya eSimunye nasemhlume area. But ebe banema tags lapha tebe bawagabile la ngembili. La neligama la loyo license inspector kutoba ne logo yaka Eswatini television and kuyabhala ukuthi ke TV license. So sicela lokho ukuthi sive that's what they need to look out for. Uma ngabe kuvela umuntu lonke leyo tag lekhomba ukuthi ngibani igama lakhe kude ilogo yakaswazi TV nalokuthi akabhala lo TV license, they shouldn't tolerate those people. Those people will probably be fraudsters, and it is a reality. People will take advantage, of such things. But we did try to take measures lokuthi but they be branded as well as there's going to be their personal information kulawo ma tags.
Okay, I think you did mention earlier in partnership with Titolo letithengisa wona lama devices lawa ingabe vele mhlambe nasibuka compliance on their side lokuthi bayabagcwalisisa invele lama form mangabe ama customer dothenga ama TVs inasibuka nje ukuthi banibambisa invele TV license nokuthi ngabe mhlambe during le ma inspections lawa nabo ndabavakashela Titolo ukucheck ukuthi vele ama customer bayabaniketela ama form egcwalisa.
Okay, thank you for that question. In terms of letitolo lokuthi ke ngabe vele basibambisa yini se stage and si mbaga TV license labanye bakhona vele basibambisa kakhulu lo ekuthini mangabe vele uthenga leyo TV uphuma umbhadalelo 108 that we further request kuletinye titolo ngoba letinye titolo vele khanza ukuthi abakwendi lo ngoba setiningi la titolo leti sengisa lama gadgets, some of them twathola in CBD areas lengo utayithola lele macwecwethini la khona ungakhona kufikela khona lo mfo loyo uthengisa lama gadgets lesikhuluma ngawo. So a few of them are complying, and we are very grateful to those entities laba kade bayatihlupha losibalansile loyo mthetho. So we do encourage them lokuthi abasibambisa sisteshi bayihambele le TV license noma bakayikhokhi le TV or that particular gadget angaphumi 180 emalangeni.
Yeah, ufuna sikhulume ngendaba ama penalties nomcaba. I think kunebamfu labahlukahlukene kunaloyo lowayibhadala nje kanye TV license yakhe, kunaloyo lowayibhadala probably tinyanga noma iminyaka lemi3 wabeso soyahluleka ngenxa yemsebenzi, kunaloyo nje longazange sekayibhadale nje kwasanhlobo. Yes, so what are their penalties ngabo nje ngalokho kuhlukana lokho?
My penalties, the main one and the biggest one and the most unfortunate one, kuboshwa. So vele makhanzakala ukuthi vele awukakhoni lokuthi uyibhadalele TV license yakho kumbe sekwengcebo bo 1 year 2 years so la awuveli ka TV license uyibhadale vele uyaboshwa, and then iba khona ifine ngibangabele kufanele ukuthi ibhadalwe as well, which is 5,000 emalangeni. Nasetitolo kukhona lokuthi fanele ukuthi ba adherishe kwanabo ukuthi ke bahambele labamfu ukuthi bakhone ukuthi kwanabo bathatha le responsibility yalokuthi bayihambele leyo TV license. So vele bangabe kubonakala lokuthi kuneganga lokhona le fine vele ekhona ku 5,000 amalangeni o uyaboshwa.
Okay, so akhona mhlambe ma payment agreement, payment terms for bamfu leyo khanza ukuthi mhlambe basemuva bayafuna lokubhadala but abakhoni due to financial constraints. Kukhona le TV license labasitha ngakho?
Thank you for asking that question. Ikhona ngiko siyabacocotela the viewers at home ukuthi please do get in touch with TV license. Ama office abo akhona ala embabane emadlenya building noma bede khona lapha ka Eswatini TV. Siba khona kubahlalisa phansi sikhulume nawe as umuntu lonayo leyo gadget lokuthi ke unema challenges ekubhadala ukukhulumisana ikhona leyo platform leyo nalokuthi bese siyahlangabeda as a client lokuthi ke ukhona kuyibhadala through a comfortable installment.
Yeah, nalokuthi nje it has been made easier to pay TV license. There's imali, there's mobile money, there's also a net bank. Ingavele mhlambe, do people utilize those platforms?
Yes, definitely they do. Ngibona nje vele laba wasebenzisa kakhulu kumbe singasho sibancane labafika kuvele ema officeini ethu, but lama platforms lo wamentionile, they use them quite a lot and they're working for us as well when it comes to the collection yale TV license.
Okay, I think mhlawumbe kubusele emuva nje kancane namcebe sibuke sikhuluma ngema devices leyo kanje ukuthi mhlawumbe lamanye damage, lamanye sewahlala nje umuntu igcinele iTV yakhe. I think kule ndzaba la isifuna ukuvela ukuthi ingabe amakhasimende kumele ende njani uma ngabe vele athi khanzana lama TV lawa lasahleli noma mhlawumbe seyilimele so ditshele nje ukuthi ayisasebenzi vele ngeke ngibhadalele yini le kumele ayende customer wena siqiniseke ukuthi akade khanza sesasingene nebandla.
The customer kufanele declare. Ema offices ethu nema license inspectors ethu akhona loku basita out lokuthi bese sebayakhona kubona ukuthi uma ngabe sowubikile ukuthi i-gadget yakho ayisebenzi iba khona le leniency ukuthi ke bangakhambeli lo 180 emalangeni. So we do encourage ema viewers emakhaya ukuthi uba ngabe I think we did talk about it earlier on, unayo le gadget but ayisasebenzi, declare it, divete Eswatini TV thereafter utakubambisa when it comes to that. Aneke vele sikuhambele uma ngabe sowubikile ukuthi ninayo le gadget but le gadget ayisebenzi.
So ukuthi niyaya nina niyo-check ukuthi vele ayisebenzi bamba yini because ngaya nje ngithi ne-gadget ayisebenzi but ngibe ngasho liqiniso kube kuhamba nifike phi nje kule process le.
I think that is where the door-to-door inspections, come into play. So lapho siyaba encourage ukuthi ke makuconcotha leyo license inspector ngilapho khona ngwaba ne-opportunity khona ukuthi ke ubakhombe ukuthi ke nayi gadget but ayisebenzi, so sikhona ukumeasureisha lokho through lama door-to-door inspections.
Okay, I think lenikwenda nje namcebo lokunye lokubalekile kulamalanga ngiyo indzaba ekushayela ama-customer kuzama kubafuna information noma mhlambe iningwane kuzama uku-update i-data yenu ku-system. Ingabe vele mhlambe lokhu kunjani, bayakhona yini kunisita Service Amaswati kuniketa leyo information?
Yes, bayasiniketa information just kakhulu kuma clients ethu nema viewers aga Eswatini TV. Banako vele ukuthi bathi balitholile licingo from Eswatini TV lilimhambelako noma limkhumbuta ukuthi fanele obhadale 180 emalangeni. Ba comply most of them. Nalokuthi the reason why we are also doing lokushayela, the different entities go collect nale database as well lokuthi mangakhe ama TV la khona la ngaphandle nema customer ukuthi mangaphi khona to develop a system whereby kumbe annually you will get that invoice or that reminder ukuthi ke your TV license is due in the next 2 months kumbe basake get 2 months ukuthi in 1 month 1 week. So this is what the whole exercise will create in the long run lokuthi kube khona ne database le bakhona.
Okay, kokugcina nje nomcebe, so tomorrow it's on niyaphuma nihamba nelibonjeni. What are these areas nentabe nitivakashela mhlambe daba surprise?
It's not a surprise. It's a sugar belt area labadobe kusintolwa khona from the 16th all the way to the 25th and ke kufaka ekhathi bomhlume boVuvulane Thabankulu Esimunye njengoba wathi kusama areas lawo anala tinkampani letinkulu, so nalapho kutawungenwa lapho kulama associations lawo all the tinkampani leyo bakhulunyiswe and ba encourage ukuthi babhadale license and collect it as well. Bapheze bangena nala emakhaya lapho khona badobe babanqonqotha khona kwenziwa khona le door to door. So nalapho ngitoba khona kuspan advisor ukuthi sesifikile but mofuna kubhadala badobe sesigese bayakhona ukuadvise ngala channels of payment that we mentioned earlier. Aneke sicela nje ukuthi the public ikunake ukuthi makuchamka license inspector athi 180 emalangeni TV license cela ubhadale nyalo. Sicela ukuthi bangakwende lokho. No one is expected to pay lo 180 makufika umuvo adonqonqotha emnyango wakho.
Unless they take you through the email or mobile money process.
Exactly, unless unayo lo TV license inspector. But vele abanye bakhona wakaza ukuthi njengoba shito but they will take advantage bagange bantu la ngaphandle. But other than that vele lama license inspectors, they are not going to take any cash whatsoever.
All right, thank you so much Smakhulu. Namceba mbukele sothi vele ukuthi my inspections ayaqala tomorrow on the 17th lubonjeni so njengoba sathi mentionile nje tindzawo abatabe bakido ema inspections kanti mangabusola ukuthi lo mvulona akasiyo ka TV license ungachumana nabo overtile namceba ukuthi batabe bane ma tags lasho ukuthi basebenza ka TV license kanjalo kwenetithombe tabo so it will be easier ukuthi uba recognize ngalo lokho nihlale niphephile njengoba bayaqala nje kusasa le second break sabe ne traffic update.
Do you remember the spinning thing? This is us. This picture represents what we did. We were there when coronavirus wreaked havoc in our population. Together with other stakeholders, we formed the first line, controlling the spread of the unknown and unseen enemy of the people. Anxious ourselves, we collected dead bodies countrywide. At the time, When no one wanted to come near dead bodies of loved ones, we did care for our fellow citizens. Thank you, the people of Eswatini and teams of first responders.
Eight minutes before 7 o'clock, lesikhathi sitawubuka simo semgwaqo na Sergeant Gule asivusela amakwabani lomhla ekseni khambeka kanjani emigwaqweni live.
Anguvusele Thombeni, ngivusele umbukelo welihlelo, sivuka sinenkhungu etindaweni eziphakeme. Kuletinye indawo ibonakala ihambisana nemkhemetelo. Kukhumbuta nje bashayeli ukuthi bekunene asichubeke sishayele ngekunaka simo lesikhona emgwaqweni. Kule simo nje lesikhona namuhla litubane sibhekile silinciniphe libengelelo leliphansi. Umgamo wokulandela lenye imotolo ungede ngalokuphinziwe kuze ukuthi ukhona kulawula imotolo yakho. Lapho kuvela simo bongakasikhathi khona. Nekukhanyisa ke malambu awasigcizelele kakhulu bekunene ukuthi asiwavule emalambu. Ikakhulu kade emalambu lamakhulu ekuhamba ema-driving beam. Sendele kokuthi nalomunye phela bekunene asheshe akubone ngesikhathi sitokhona kuvikela kwendeka kwato tingote nakutokhona nokuthi athathe isinqumo lesiyaba ngileso lesifanele nokuthi ke sinake bekunene ukuthi njengoba kunemkhemetelo nje siyawukhumbula ukuthi imigwaqo yethu leminingi linebonakala inama potholes iyawumumatha wona ke emanti leziyawena ke ukuthi kube likhunyana kuyibona ikakhulu kade leso spot emgwaqweni asihambe ke ngelitubane lilingene leliyawena ukuthi yakhona kwendluna ngendlela leyawuba ngilephephile emadolobheni ethu sisebena kahle tibane temgwaqo embabane kumathapha kamanzini kanjalo nalapha endasi enhlangano kanti ke nawusuka ekenda sengwenya lapha eTulu emangwaneni noma ke lapha eTulu la uqala kwehla inthaba yakumalagwane ikhona i-cooling station lapho imile imotolo lezinkulu uthethe umzila longasenqele lapho bakhulunyiswa khona abashayeli bese ke kuthi imotolo lezincane etendlula ngasekudla sigcizelele bekunene malagwane njengoba ubonakala umgwaqo ushelela unemandi kuyavama ukuthi imotolo tehluleke kwendlula lapha noma ke kwehla noma ke kwenyuka ibonakala sesiphuma esandleni sebashayeli kepha ke namuhla siyakhona ukuthi njengoba sikhumbutekile ukuthi asihambeni kahle kuyoba bede ingoti leyawendeka lapho ngoba abashayeli bayasinaka basihloniphe simo lesikhona emgwaqweni kanti lapha kamanzini solo uvaliwe Southern Distributor umgwaqo losuka lapha ngaseSalesian ubheka khona lapha eBosco Skill Center uvaliwe leyo mgwaqo loyo siyawusebenzisa ke lemigwaqo ikakhulukati sinelesewelela mshiya lo walapha eNgwane Park nasenhlangano solo uvaliwe nange umgwaqo lo MR1 losuka khona lapha kaMjuda ubheke khona ngasebus rank yawuphumela khona lapha ngaseBering nawubheka khona esihluthe siyawusebenzisa ke leminye imigwaqo ikakhulukati nangilungena ikhathi edolobheni lapha eTulu ngakafaya noma ke uqhamuka eRoyal Casino ungena edolobheni sivaliwe naleso staladi leso sakhona kunedimpawu temgwaqo lesibekele dona emgwaqweni lesisebenzisako kwesikhashana kanti kuletinye izifunza lesikubonako ngeyifuyo njengoba kunjena nje awuyabonakala seyilambukela imandi lalapha ecadzini komgwaqo bekunene siyagcizelela kubafuyi abakhweshise imfuyo emgwaqweni nathi asikahlali siyachubeka nelibandla lesibambisene nalo wena siqiniseko sokuthi imfuyo iyaqoqwa iyakhweshiswa emgwaqweni ngendlela leya wena ukuthi imigwaqo ihlale ihambeka iphephile ngaso sonke isikhathi khumbula ngwane sithi kuphepha kwakho kuphepha kwami nasikanye kanye sibambisene siyawukhona kunciphisa ingoti zemgwaqo ngakho ke sithi la ukhona khona yenda siqiniseko sokuthi uyangibambisa noma singekho kanye kanye wenda siqiniseko sokuthi lokwendawo kuyawenda ukuthi nalomunye losebenzisa umgwaqo abe ngilophephile ngifisele kusebenza lokuhle endlini emsakato esachubeka nemsebenzi wenu Thombeni nelibandla lobambisene nalo labonjinela nesive semaswati sisifisele lona lilanga lelihle naleliphephile sayisebenzisa umgwaqo siyabonga kakhulu
Siwakhuluma kwabane kusiniketelo yombiko lomhla ekseni it's 4 minutes before 7 sabahloti market esibuye tindzaba desingisi
Phela makhaya inkosi nangabe phela udukhohliwe timpepa takho buye eceleni awubuye eceleni phela thina sijeke emsebentini awungeke phela ukhohlela le-ID nalenombolo yokuvota lele basifakele yona phela la tincingweni ha ngibonini buye eceleni nkosi yathi ngijeke emsebentini kwani mina Hayi wena msawumnye ngathi igaba lesithathu ihamba phela kosha itithi nyalo. Sigaba sekuqala sasihamba i-voter validation. Lapho khona sithi hamba uye emphakathi wangakini uyohlolisisa ukuthi le mininingwane lowayibhala ingiyo yini nendzawo la tovotela khona. Niyonke kahle nje sithi lapho kosha hlolisisa imininingwane yakho nathi sibambisane ukuthi imininingwane yakho ibhaleke kahle yini. Nani. Hayi phela lokho kuyawondeka lebo 22 June kuyale ku12 July. Yebo bese ke sigaba lesilandzelako nomination coach lapho khona kubheka ukuthi ngenkundla inominate lokungenani bantu labacela ku3 kuya ku20 kuze ke umuntu anqonye kufuneka lokungenani abe nemavoti lang10. Ngiyahleka yini mfana babe ngoba ngithi nje lekhaya selisenzo ngitawungena nje ngigijima nonyaka simfaka umuntu lokakake wasendela lutho asimfaka acela ama projects ngokuya phuma ikosha yathi lathi indzaweni kulama communities thina sifayisana nema problems embamba sithi ngama solution bamba yebo koshi hayi kahle phela benguye kulandzela yena mkhulu ngicela yena yebo bekacela ukuthi ngimbambele kulandzela yena bese ke sigaba lesilandzelako sengama primary elections wona ke lama primary elections atawondeka lebo 26 August 2023 phela koshi bese ke lokulandzelako sengama secondary elections lapho khona wona atawuthatha lebo 29 September 2023. Ngiyahleka yini mfana babe ngoba lamkhatheseni kwama primary nalama secondary kutabe kune campaign process lokusho ukuthi umuntu ufuna kade itshengisa ukuthi wakhiwe ngani setawufa abakabishi nani okulandzela mina ngiyabonga sisi.
Lo mlayeto nolethelwa baka EBC Elections and Boundaries Commission of Eswatini.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. This is the news at 7. The Minister of Agriculture, Jabulani Mabuza, has unveiled Howard Mbuisa.
Mr. Mbuisa had been in the forefront in spearheading the establishment of the fund, including other institutional arrangements that will support the activities of the fund. He will assume his duties as director with immediate effect, and he will lead the fund into its next phase of growth and impact, starting with setting up the offices of the Secretariat. He will work closely with the Ministry, Steering Committee, and all our partners and beneficiaries to ensure that the fund continues to serve the needs and aspirations of the agriculture sector in Eswatini.
The new director said his first assignment is to formulate guidelines for the fund.
Litiko lesiqhuba nje ukuthi sibafana litasibambisa sisaqhubeka nawo lo msebenzi bese sebenza nalo litiko ngomsebenzi walo lona ubuke kona ukuthi ema-plans la khona ekuthuthukisa i-agriculture sector ngabe indlela letingcono tekuthi kufandeke tingaba njani. So siyethemba ukuthi lawo ma-plans kutaba ngola tawuchubeka inform ukuthi yini lokutawubanjwa ku-prioritizwe sisasebenza lo msebenzi.
Currently, the fund has 53 million emalangeni. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samkal Suekoza with Zikumbuzo Dlamini, Babane.
Clerk to Parliament Benedict Xaba has commended the work done by the dissolved 11th Parliament and then urged Eswatini to elect wisely on the ongoing national elections as Parliament is the backbone of the country. Xaba says as Eswatini will be going for the primary elections, they should ensure to elect candidates that will not hinder progress of the country.
The Clerk to Parliament, Benedict Klapa, speaks about some of the bills passed by the 11 Parliament.
Out of 100 bills that were presented, 91% were passed, and also issues of subordinate legislation. Also, out of 11 that were brought, 10 of them were passed. Then we had international instruments, 15 which were brought to Parliament, and 15 of them were passed. So I can say that this Parliament, it has really worked very hard, in fact, also in addressing issues of economy in the country. If you look, the development has happened, it is due to policy.
Klaba continues to talk about the importance of electing wisely on the ongoing national elections.
Once we have a weak parliament, the whole country can collapse and we can have a weak kingdom. Especially that parliament, one of the roles is the role of oversight. It will mean that when we have got a weak parliament, then the executive also will go to bed and sleep. So when parliament and the executive are together in bed, then the poor people will suffer.
Some of the challenges that were faced by the 11 Parliament include civil unrest, COVID-19 outbreak. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, with Movashonge Parliament.
The Elections and Boundaries Commission says those nominated for the ongoing national elections will only be eligible to take leave of absence from work after the 12th Parliament has been officially opened. This was said by EPC legal advisor Mbuso Dlamini during a workshop which was aimed at capacitating community leaders under the Manzini region.
The Elections and Boundaries Commission legal advisor Mbuso Dlamini says the issue of leave of absence was discussed with the Minister of Public Service. He adds that the leave of absence is contained in the Eswatini Constitution. Dlamini continues to add that it was concluded that the leave of absence is supposed to kick in for the duration of Parliament, adding that despite this, those nominated are required to have the leave of absence.
Kan we requirement ukuthi lo muntu nakaye amelela ukhetho kuze bangamkhokhi laba inani bakhe funa usayiphatha le leave of absence wena mqashi kahulumeni uwe umvumelele ukuthi akaya umelela ukhetho njengecela kwakhe but naso kumsha le constitution ithi for the duration of parliament lokho ukuthi parliament esikhuluma ngayizi parliament nesekhaya lokho sisikhuluma ngale lentaba.
Manzini Regional Administrator Chief Gija commends the work done by the Elections and Boundaries Commission, especially on capacitating community leaders on laws governing the ongoing national elections. He says this was done against all odds as there were some challenges faced by EPC.
Ayakhala lokunye sibona naku bese ke sebalungisa usike akuhambe njoba bashiye.
On Monday, the Elections and Boundaries Commission capacitated community leaders from the Hoho region and is expected to meet with community leaders from Lubombo and Shisodeni regions. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, visual source from the Elections and Boundaries Commission Communications Department.
The Indian High Commissioner in Eswatini, Raman Prasad, says India has a goal to ensure economic development for low and middle income countries. The Commissioner has been speaking during the 77th Independence Day of India.
On Tuesday, Indians in Eswatini gathered to celebrate the 77th Independence Day of India with India High Commissioner in Eswatini, Raman Prasad, where they sang their national anthem, amongst other songs, and hoisted their flag. The High Commissioner said India has a goal to promote economic development for all.
India had hosted a voice of the global South, which is basically to give voice to all the countries who never found their voices heard in the G20. As far as Eswatini is concerned, we have India always believes in building its soft power. We have this year given about nearly 100 scholarships under various schemes of the Government of India like the ITEC, the ICCR.
People of India in attendance said Independence Day is a reminder of the many sacrifices and struggles made by the Indian freedom fighters.
Our freedom fighters, Mahatma Gandhi, Motilal Nehru, everybody fought for our freedom. We got freedom and we are enjoying the freedom now.
Being independent in such a way that the economy of our country has gone well through the roof. Okay, it's taken us to one place to another.
all Indian peoples, we are meeting together and we are hugging together and celebrate to the India, like singing the song and dancing.
The 7th Independence Day of India is celebrated under the theme, Nation First, Always First. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samkal Suekoza with Zikumbuzo Dlamini Babane.
Non-communicable diseases coordinator at the Ministry of Health, Vusi Shabangu, says untreated NCDs can lead to mental disorders. Shabangu has been speaking during an NCDs training for nurses.
The Ministry of Health says more than 90% of adults in Eswatini are at risk for non-communicable disease. 1 in 3 adults in Eswatini has hypertension or high blood pressure. The Ministry of Health then introduced NCDs training for nurses in 2018. On Tuesday, the Ministry of Health had the second nurses training on NCDs, where NCDs coordinator Vusi Shabangu said these trainings will close the existing gaps in NCDs treatment and screening.
We have seen that there are some gaps that are there in concerning screening of NCDs, also managing the NCDs, preventing the NCDs. So as we are training the nurses, we want to make sure that we close these gaps. We capacitate these nurses to do screenings for NCDs for everyone coming to facilities, also making sure that they give information to these people how to prevent these NCDs because they are preventable. So also those who have been diagnosed with the NCDs have to be put onto medication to make sure that we manage and control these NCDs and prevent complication and deaths that might be related to these NCDs.
The Ministry of Health has trained 560 nurses on NCDs, whereas the World Health Organization says 4 types of non-communicable diseases, including cancers and diabetes, account for over 2/3 of deaths worldwide. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samkal Suekoza with Kumbuzo Dlamini Babane.
The United Nations Population Fund has started a program where young people are requested to voice out their opinions on how to solve issues and problems they encounter, such as mental issues and other problems they come across as they grow. UNFPA Communications Officer Zwelakhe Nsibanze says the reason this program was started is to try and deal with abuse issues young people face.
United Nations Population Fund Communication Officer Zwelakhe Nsibanze says the program speaks of issues of pregnancy prevention on young women, issues on how to take care of young pregnant mothers, and also issues on HIV prevention.
The Mental Health SRH Hack Lab is a platform that seeks to get youth-led solutions to the current youth problems. As you can see, maybe recently from 2020 coming this side, young people are facing many challenges, including teenage pregnancies, also violence, and others losing jobs. So that it's a huge load on their shoulders.
Nsibanze also explains that before sending their applications, they shall be provided with the training known as boot camps, where they shall be trained on how innovations are done, and that after the training, they shall be given a platform to voice out their different ideas, where the candidate with the best ideas shall be rewarded. Eswatini TV News, Isebene Mthethwa and Muzi Mkhonta, United Nations House, Babane.
Learners in secondary schools around the country which were selected for the 4-year Eswatini General Certificate Secondary Education Program will write their first checkpoint assessment in October and November this year. Eswatini Examinations Council Registrar Dr. Mandlenkosi Dlamini says since this is still a pilot program, learners will not be expected to pay an examination fee as this will be catered for by government.
Last year, government announced that 32 schools will be piloted under the Eswatini General Certificate Secondary Education Program. The registrar at the Examinations Council, Dr. Mandlenkosi Dlamini, explains more about the checkpoint assessment to be written by learners late this year.
With the checkpoint exam, it means Exams Council as an assessment body in the country when it comes to exams. We have set an examination for 4 subjects. That is English language, mathematics, Eswatini, and science. And then the rest of the subjects, we have what we call subject associations and panels They will then sit down and set those exams, which are referred to as progression tests. The intention to have the 4-year program is like you are saying to the students of Eswatini from now on, from those pilot schools, for example, they will be able now to do AS, which is an advanced substitute level. The AS program, or examination for that matter, it allows the kids to go to any university actually across the globe. Now, for those who are good enough again, they will then move on to A level.
Only grade 9 learners will write the checkpoint assessment, and they will only pay 100 emalangeni invigilation fee. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Smuva Shongwe, Ezulwini.
To ensure full participation of women in the national elections, the Deputy Prime Minister's office is capacitating women from Lutango, Lwakangwani on the laws and regulations of the national elections. Speaking during a workshop at Esibayeni Lodge, the gender coordinator Nomzamo Dlamini says a huge number of voters are women, hence they need to be aware of the election procedures.
We are looking into capacitating them on electoral processes, mainly focusing on electoral laws, taking note of the different responsibilities that they will be playing as voters, as others have been nominated, others will be playing different roles such as Bankalajani.
The acting chairperson of Lutango National Executive, Kusile says this training has provided women a chance to make informed decisions during this year's elections.
Esikhathini esiningi uhulumende wakithi wakhiwa cishe ngabobabe kakhulu. Nabakhona bomake kuye kube babili bathathu.
United Nations Deputy Resident Representative says when women are chosen into leadership, they are able to take bold decisions.
When you have women in the parliament, you are bound to have policies that are balanced.
According to the United Nations, Eswatini's population is made of 50.4% women. In last term's parliament, only 2 women were voted into parliament. The country's constitution states that parliament should constitute of 30% women. The country's constitution states that parliament should constitute of 30% women. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Smuva Shongwe.
Let's take a look at news making headlines internationally. The military junta that seized power in Niger in a coup last month has said it will prosecute ousted President Mohamed Bazoum for high treason over his exchanges with foreign heads of state and international organizations.
An accusation that could potentially lead to a death sentence for Mohamed Bazoum. The military junta in Niger says it has evidence to prosecute the ousted president for high treason and undermining the country's security. The exiled foreign minister says the junta has no legitimacy to press charges.
These people who carried out this coup, this corrupt act we are witnessing, which is more than treason, it's a criminal act. They cannot pretend they have the moral status to put anyone on trial.
But in the capital Niamey, some are welcoming the move.
A charge of high treason, that's exactly what he needs, since this gentleman has betrayed the people of Niger. It's unacceptable for a president.
What we would like is for it to be carried out according to the rule book, respecting all procedures and appointing magistrates with the required skills.
The international community, though, is watching with dismay. Members of the West African bloc ECOWAS meeting in Nigeria on Monday said they learned of the charges with stupefaction, saying it was a provocation that contradicted the junta's reported willingness for a peaceful solution. Washington says it's incredibly dismayed.
This action is completely unwarranted and unjustified, and candidly, it will not contribute to a peaceful resolution of this crisis.
Mohamed Bazoum has been held under house arrest since the coup on the 26th of July in conditions the UN deems deplorable.
We remain extremely concerned about the state of being, the health and safety of the president and his family.
Regional powers have been pushing for a diplomatic exit from the crisis, but this new escalation comes as the threat of a military intervention by ECOWAS to restore democracy is still on the table.
Russian airstrikes hit two western regions of Ukraine, bordering NATO member Poland and other areas on August 15, killing 3 people and wounding more than a dozen, Ukrainian officials said.
Handshakes and long discussions with soldiers. On Monday, Volodymyr Zelensky travelled to the Donetsk region to meet troops on the Eastern Front near Soledar.
It is important to speak directly with the soldiers about the war experience of those who are in the positions. Today there were detailed and candid discussions about our offensive actions, supply to the military forces, commanders' capabilities.
Ukraine said on Monday that it had driven Russian forces out of small areas of territory as part of its grueling counteroffensive launched in June. Ukraine's deputy defense minister said that Kyiv had gained a pocket of land around the war-torn city of Bakhmut last week.
In the Bakhmut sector, 3 square kilometers were liberated last week. In total, 40 square kilometers have been liberated on the southern flank of the Bakhmut sector.
Ukrainian authorities also claimed progress in the south. On social media, Zelensky thanked the US for recently agreeing to send Ukraine new security assistance worth $200 million. But fighting continues in Ukraine. Several people, including a newborn baby, were killed by Russian shelling in the Kherson region on Sunday.
A fire in the south of France burned through 500 hectares of land and destroyed a campsite, with 2,000 people evacuated before the blaze was brought under control on August 15. And the French Environment Minister said climate change exacerbated conditions of drought that fed the fire.
Middle of the night, and tourists carrying suitcases are making their way back to their campsite, having left in a hurry a few hours earlier.
They told us we could go back. We're the first campsite to be able to come back, so we're a bit relieved.
But not everyone was so lucky. One of the 4 evacuated campsites, partially burned, will have to stay closed for now. About 2,000 people, tourists and residents, had to sleep in the 7 shelters open for the night, including in the town of Saint-André.
I just wanted to get out of here. With all that smoke, the blazes, it was stressful.
The fire started here just after 5 o'clock and quickly spread over hundreds of acres. A violent fire, fueled by a drought and whirling winds reaching 80 kilometers per hour, complicating the firemen's work. Some residents tried to extinguish the fire on their own.
I'm protecting my house as much as I can. We've been watering the bushes for a while because everything that flies burns.
More than 650 firemen were mobilized. Some came from neighboring counties. They were supported through the night by 8 Canadaires, 3 firefighting aircrafts and 3 helicopters. 20 firemen were injured, but for now, the fires have been contained.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump was hit with a 4th set of criminal charges when a Georgia grand jury issued a sweeping indictment accusing him of trying to overturn his 2020 election loss to Democrat Joe Biden.
Racketeering, forgery, violating an oath of office. Within these documents, brought by the Fulton County Superior Court clerk to be unsealed, there are 13 charges against former President Donald Trump. Once signed at the court docket, the indictments were brought before the judge overseeing the case. Over 2 years, Fulton County's district attorney, Fonnie Willis, gathered evidence, culminating in a 97-page document that lays out 41 felony counts. She said a trial date will be set in the next 6 months, with Trump and his entourage having until August 25th to turn themselves in. They'll be tried together.
A Fulton County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment, charging 19 individuals with violations of Georgia law arising from a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in this state.
In addition to Trump, his former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and former attorney Rudy Giuliani, as well as other Trump lawyers, were charged. All, including the former president, are accused of racketeering, which carries an up to 20-year prison sentence. The investigation focused on a January 2nd, 2021 call, in which then-President Trump urged the Georgia Secretary of State to find enough votes to undo his narrow loss against Joe Biden.
All I want to do is this. I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
Trump's campaign office blasted the indictments, saying they're politically motivated to damage his attempts to become president again in 2024. This is the fourth criminal case brought against Trump since he's left office. He's repeatedly denied any wrongdoing, claiming the many cases against him are a witch hunt.
Some experts say former President Donald Trump's attempts to overturn the results of the 2020 election are a threat to American democracy and welcome Georgia indictment as a path to accountability.
Many Americans stayed up late Monday night to see and hear Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis detail the charges in a 97-page indictment against former President Donald Trump and 18 others.
A Fulton County grand jury returned a true bill of indictment, charging 19 individuals with violations of Georgia law arising from a criminal conspiracy to overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election in this state.
Willis gave Trump and the other defendants until noon on Friday, August 25th, to turn themselves in to the court. One expert told VOA that because Willis got indictments on racketeering or RICO charges, all 19 charged will be linked together as one group.
And that, in many ways, is not great if you're at the top of that food chain in some respects, because it gives an incentive for people to provide evidence and to make deals to your detriment.
For his part, former President Donald Trump blasted the indictments on social media, proclaiming his innocence and describing D.A. Willis as out of control and very corrupt. Trump said he would hold a news conference Monday to present a report on what he termed the presidential election fraud that he says took place in Georgia. Some 60 court rulings in multiple states found Trump's claims of election fraud in the 2020 presidential election lacked standing or merit. Trump remains the clear frontrunner in the race for the Republican nomination for the 2024 presidential election, with other candidates reluctant to call him out for denying that Biden won in 2020. One expert tells VOA this denial of the 2020 election results is truly unprecedented.
And the problem here, as in all societies, is once you break down a barrier and set a precedent, no matter how bad the precedent is, it's so much easier to have it done again and again and again. And that's Donald Trump's real legacy to American democracy. He has weakened it and undermined it.
One voter at the Iowa State Fair told VOA he was going to await the verdicts before judging Trump.
But I do know this, until he's been judged guilty by a jury of his peers, he's innocent. That's America.
Trump is seeking to delay the trials until after the November 2024 elections. Willis is seeking a trial in Georgia within the next 6 months. Trump is also facing trials in New York, Washington, and Florida.
And in our sports roundup, we begin with Green Mamba Football Club that are in hard preparations for their first leg of CAF Champions League, where they will face FC Songo from Mozambique this coming Sunday. Green Mamba coach Ernest Mavuso says the absence of strikers Kalin Zinisa is likely to affect their performance.
In our sports roundup, we begin with Green Mamba Football Club that are in hard preparations for their first leg of CAF Champions League, where they will face FC Songo from Mozambique this coming Sunday. Green Mamba coach Ernest Mavuso says the absence of striker Skali Saberonziniza is likely to affect their performance.
Kuyasilimata because sekufuna ukuthi sende ama-modifications even in midfield because i-presence yakhe up front beyisiniketa a different dimension ku-midfield on how we want to play, but nasekungasuye sekufuna ishintshe.
Team player Njabulo Twala says they have received a clear message from the club directors that encouraged them to win their game.
ukuthi sifake amandla kakhulu kuwo konke ama-preparations abe kahle noma ingqinamba kuhlala tikhona kepha nje akusikho lesikubuke kakhulu kepha nje kumgcoka sibuke ukuthi sibuye nema-results la positive siwine lo mdlalo.
The kickoff will be 3 p.m. local time in Mozambique for the first leg. Moving on, in athletics, Eswatini Athletics Association have confirmed their participation in this year's World Athletics Championship to be held in Budapest, Hungary from Saturday the 19th to 27th of this month.
And the president will be traveling to attend the Congress there as well, which will happen to be an elective one this time around. So we expect ukuthi wonke umuntu utabe eager for a performance ukuthi itawuhamba njani. We will be there to update you as it happens, and siyathemba ukuthi Sibusiso utasimelela kahle.
Subsiso Matsenjwa, speaking to Eswatini TV Sports Desk, he mentioned his readiness to the championships as he'll be competing for the 7th time in his history of the championships. Matsenjwa says he will use the championship as the right platform for preparations of next year's Olympic Games in Paris, France. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabisum Sonera, Babane.
It's 7:30. We've come to the end of our English bulletin. Thank you for staying with us. Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly.
Let me tell you about my crush. Ngenzane inhliziyo yami embi kwakho njengekudala.
Ngondlo isiswayo.
It is 3 in the afternoon. We are back in the living.
For men are so kind towards creation more than they even were to their own creator.
I am the greatest of this generation. They'll be calling me the girl who made poetry look cool, yo. Cool.
It's 32 minutes after 7. Welcome back. The issue of gender-based violence has been prevalent within Eswatini for a sustained period of time now. Has the country made progress in combating GBV? What are some recommendations in the multiple processes aimed at combating it? Are we meeting our international treaty obligations? How effective have the interventions of government been, specifically legal and structural changes in promoting change? Let us discuss all that and further outline more recommendations necessary to facilitate government strategy in overcoming gender-based violence. Nomzamo Dlamini is the gender coordinator in the Deputy Prime Minister's office. She joins me now. A very good morning, Nkosi.
Good morning to you. Lovely.
Dlamini, I just said the gender-based violence has been going on for a sustained period of time. I remember, I think 2007 was the year where nakakona gender policy.
2010.
2010.
Yes.
That's a long time ago. We look at the numbers. In fact, let me give you the opportunity to give us the background. Give us the background.
Okay. Let me start off by the gender policy.
Yeah.
The gender policy was the first generation, the first of its kind in the country that pronounced or highlighted issues of women. It basically presented 10 thematic areas, which were drawn from the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. I think viewers will recall about the Beijing conference that was held in Beijing, China, to advocate. That's where it was the main conference to advocate for gender issues especially. So the country came back to adopt at national level that framework, so through the gender policy. So basically, I can say that the gender policy also had a standalone thematic area on issues of gender-based violence. It also included thematic areas on women political participation, women in education, women in health, and so many. Seeing that women in the different sectors were less represented. Their voices were not heard, they were not visible in spaces of decision-making, and basically their participation was just minimal.
And when you talk about the underrepresentation of women, I think that draws back to the perception of women in society, and I think that has been a lingering thorn, not just in Eswatini, but in different economies around the world. We always speak about, you know, the perception of women as subordinate has really resulted in a lot of, I would say, rather hampering developments around every economy. And we always look at it as a gender thing, but really it trickles down to every other development. You have launched this new strategy, new policy. In fact, you're launching it today. It should respond to the same thematic areas, I believe, the 10 ones that are entrenched or enshrined in the one from 2010. Talk to me about this new one and the justification behind the review.
Okay, basically on that one, we are so excited as a country that today we will be launching the new gender policy, now which will be referenced as the gender policy of 2023. The cabinet endorsed this policy following different consultations with our players on the ground, from government ministries to civil society organizations, traditional sector as well, and private sector, and many other players. Basically, the reason why we had to review the 2010 policy, first of all, it was outdated, because it was aimed at driving gender equality and economic empowerment to attain the MDGs, which we know that elapsed in 2015. So looking at that, there were other new frameworks at global level, regional level, and national level that have been adopted, and there are new targets set. So as a country, we didn't want to be left behind on those issues, taking cognizant of the fact that women's issues, there has been advocacy and programs and change in policies here and there, but they are still lagging behind. So then we undertook the responsibility to align with the global targets. So maybe I can give an example of the global targets that and the regional targets that we have aligned with. We have looked at the UN SDG goals and showed that what is reflected in the UN SDGs is also reflected in our gender policy, so that we can well and effectively advocate for gender issues. And then coming down at regional level, we have the AU Agenda 2063, and that agenda pronounces issues of gender equality under Aspiration 6. And then we also have the African Union Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Strategy. So we also had to find ourselves as a country also aligning as a member state to the African Union. And then coming down to sub-regional level, that is a SADC level, we the SADC protocol on gender and development was as well revised.
Okay.
So we also had to cascade down to that level as well, including the COMESA gender policy.
Yeah.
So then also at national level, we know the National Development Plan has been revised as well. So we also wanted to be in line with other national commitments as well.
Yeah. It's quite a lot of international treaties and commitments there, Nkosi. And in fact, let me hold this question for Mr. Masuku. He will come in after you. Let's go now to the strategy. I believe that it's not just the policy that you'll be launching. You also have the strategy.
Yes.
And through the grapevine, I am learning that you are reintroducing positive parenting. Just tell us about the strategy. That's interesting.
Basically, today, we are launching 3 critical documents. We've already spoken about the National Gender Policy.
Yeah.
And we have 2 strategies. We have a strategy on ending violence, which will be of the period of 2023 to 2027.
Okay.
And then we have a new strategy that we have developed. This one is also a first of its kind, the positive parenting strategy. These 2 strategies, in summary, I can say that they are now operationalizing the new gender policy. Because from the gender policy, we have the first thematic area speaks to socialization and family and socialization.
Okay.
And then we have another thematic area that speaks to ending gender-based violence. So already we are bringing on board these 2 strategies that were already pronounced by the policy.
Right.
And why we also had to review our strategy on ending gender-based violence. It's we are seeing the increase in cases of gender-based violence. Even though the country has has achieved some milestones such as enacting laws that are comprehensive laws. The SODV is very comprehensive when it comes to issues of gender-based violence. But we are seeing the cascading incidences or cases of GBV. So we also noted that it wasn't well implemented because of lack of resources. So we tried to be more realistic, more innovative, and trying to be also accommodate new developments that perpetrates or that contributes to the increase of gender-based violence. I can give an example of talking to gender-based violence that happens on digital platforms, online violence. We see that also happening a lot. So we have brought, the strategy now proposes strategies in which these issues can be addressed. There are other key stakeholders or target groups that in our previous strategy were not covered. We noted that our prevention and response is more focused on Eswatini,
right?
Which is not bad at all.
It's not bad at all.
Yes,
right.
But there is also a population of migrants and refugees that we also host as a country, and who are also to be protected by the national laws as well. So those are the target groups that we have also brought up into the new strategy. And then there are quite a number of new changes, and we are hopeful that even the modalities in which we will be implementing, taking our lessons from the previous strategy on ending violence, we will be able to implement it at a better approach this time.
Yeah, you said the strategies from 2022 to 2027, which is 5 years.
Yeah, 2023 to 2020.
Oh, sorry, 2023 to 2027.
2027. And then coming to the positive parenting, we have also learned that all the social ills that we are working on as government that are a burden to government,
right,
emanates from the family unit. Emanates from socialization is one that shapes one's behavior in later times.
Right.
We have learned that the social ills, we are having children misbehaving in different ways. We are having our youth being affected by drugs, issues of domestic violence. So all these issues are emanating from the family unit. So then we decided, together with stakeholders and Eswatini, to come with a guiding, sort of like a guiding document,
right,
that will guide programming around these issues as well. Yeah.
And it's nothing that a good beating can't fix, really.
No.
I mean, me and you, I believe, are products of a good beating. Just coming back home late from playing, you get a good beating. Positive discipline, and the word positive is there for a reason.
Definitely. I like the fact that you've underlined the positive, because we are trying to say that let parenting, we take note that parenting methodologies have changed, have evolved, in times. Sure. And the kind of families that we now have in our societies. We have families where it's child-headed household, single mother household, single dad, you know. So we are trying to also bring that understanding into the current context. And how can parents better raise their children within the context in which we live in now? Yeah.
Quite a comprehensive conversation that you've just given me there, Nomzamo. I want us to go for a net break. We'll return with your colleague, Mr. Masuku, who's going to give us, more on the monitoring and evaluation side of things, a lot of the numbers and a lot of some of the things that they see going on right now that are further perpetuating the current statistics of gender-based violence. Let's go for a quick ad break. We come back with Mr. Masuku.
We at Eswatini Television Authority are committed to observing the Eswatini Communication Commission's Broadcasting Code of Conduct.
Under the code, we are committed to broadcast news that is current, free from hate speech, accurate, balanced, and fair.
From politics to business, health, agriculture, courts, and global news, we bring you the latest updates as they happen, when they happen.
We cover all the sporting codes from the football pitch to the chessboards. This is Eswatini TV News.
All right, we're back with Mr. Masuku. He's the Monitoring and Evaluation Officer under the Deputy Prime Minister's Gender Department Office. Mr. Masuku, a very good morning to you as well. We just had Nomzamo basically giving us the background of the policy Lenzala as well as the new one. We want to hear from you about the implementation, because we understand that you are on the monitoring and evaluation side of things. The implementation of the last one and leading up to this new one, what are the achievements and the gaps that you saw?
No, thank you very much, and a very good morning to you and your listeners. From the implementation, since 2010, we had the first national gender policy in Eswatini, and I think it was the first of its kind. So it was a new, dimension altogether to say, how do we move around? How do we go about, mainstreaming gender? And it was a very new concept in itself. So we had about 10, 11 thematic areas which were directly drawn from the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and that was the actual blueprint, when it comes to gender mainstreaming for the international community. So Eswatini was also part of that in 1995, as you recall. So from the 2010 to about 10 years later, I think we saw a really great improvements and really strides which government took collectively to different arms of government. Talking about the legislature, the certain legislations that were put in place. I'll make an example of a couple of them. Some judicial measures that were taken into consideration as a result of these new gender equality policy statements that were made through the national gender policy, and also just taking cognizance of the fact that Eswatini had also acceded to a number of conventions, including the Convention on the Elimination of all the forms of discrimination against women, to say really Eswatini now needs to domesticate, or rather show by maybe domesticating some of these conventions to say what in the national context, because we know of our national constitution constitution that, we cannot maybe, automatically just take a convention and then apply it into our national context, but we rather need to domesticate either with the national legislation that can then, work and we can then, take it before the court of law. So what happened is that, we had a number of, legislations, for instance, the Deeds Registry Act, which saw, some amendments in 2012 as also a result of some, cases that were taken to court to say, but the Constitution provides for equality before the law. Why can't, as a woman, be able to register my own property in my own name without having, my spouse, giving, the consent and so on and so forth. So a number of them came in through, that particular dispensation of the gender policy and the equality, situation. And also what we also saw, 2012, we saw, the Children Protection and Welfare Act also coming in to say, we need to ensure that, we protect our children. I think earlier the conversation was around the issue of positive parenting and also the importance of socialization and the family unit. Because I think from even the African Union, perspective, there was a common position in 2012, the African Union common position on the family, which said, we need to ensure that we protect the African family. The African family is quite peculiar to, maybe the Western family or the Eastern family. So we need to make sure that, preserve certain things that, are African, which maybe may not, relate to the Western or to the Eastern part of the world. So that common position then gave birth to say, maybe African member states also now need to, take some kind of a position, have some national policies on the family, or maybe some form of legislation. So we came with, the Child Protection and Welfare Act, and also, including even other, African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child and other things. But also, moving on, also 2018, we saw the, the introduction, the Sexual Offences Domestic Violence Act, also as a result of saying, we've seen a lot, because the gender policy did talk to issues around gender-based violence, to issues of women empowerment, to issues of equality before the law, and so on and so forth. But we still saw that, we have a lot of, domestic violence happening. We have a lot of sexual offences, and which, the common law did not cover sufficiently. Even the Girls and Women's Empowerment Act, which was repealed by Eswatini, did not cover to some extent. So then we had to introduce, or rather, these certain legislations had to be introduced. And these are, some of the milestones, as a result of the national gender policy.
SOTV, by the way, universally praised for its comprehensive nature.
True.
I also want to hear about, monitoring and evaluation is very interesting, because we can then delve into the statistics. When we speak about 1 in 3 Swazi women experiencing sexual violence by the time they are 18, it's quite an archaic statistic. We're in 2023 now, and I think the first time we heard of this statistic was in 2007. I'm looking at possibly 2023 getting a new statistic or research maybe. How far with regards to that development? Are we getting a new research when it comes to the numbers, or is it still the case?
Well, in terms of the numbers, we are very fortunate. I think 2022, the Office of the DPM, again, in collaboration with partners, we did the Violence Against Children and the Youth survey, which now was looking at violence but directly at young people, which is the youth and children below the age of 18. And I think we've seen a change rather significantly, rather to our surprise also, to say we've seen a slight decrease in terms of violence against children.
Really?
And to this effect, the 1 in 3 of children having undergone sexual violence by the age of 18 is now like 1 in 5, because it's been taken down a bit. So we've seen some improvement, which means what we've been doing has worked, to some extent. So what we've been doing and what we are continuously doing is working to some extent, even though maybe that change is a bit slight, it's a bit small, but there is change. I mean, it means that people are getting it, in as much as on the other side of it, we're seeing an increase in the number of reported cases, because there's going to be a difference there. The reported cases are going up. It means people are more sensitized. They know what to do and what to look out for. But now, in terms of the actual incidents at home, or rather wherever it's happening, it's going down from the survey. It means something is working.
And I do remember that one of the biggest concerns was the underreporting of these cases. It's quite interesting to learn that people are now reporting. Would you say all of this is a culmination of the gender policy of 2010, as well as all the other interventions that you mentioned, including the treaties?
Yes, well, of course. I think previously, even during the implementation of the gender policy, before even SOTV, we were talking about age people are not reporting. We even had this terminology which we wrongly used to some extent, say TBT and all of those things, which Siswati wise is not supposed to be. But we said no, people are not reporting these things happening in the family, because we saw that a lot of violence is happening domestically within people who are related to each other. But now I think from post 2018, I think we've seen a significant the dimension change in terms of now the numbers. The numbers are going up and up. I think from the last report that we have in terms of reported cases, we had about 17,000 cases 2022. So that is coming from 15,000 in 2021. So we are seeing a significant increase as we go by the year. So probably even this year, maybe we might see another increase. We don't know. We're going to see the numbers when we end the year.
Yeah, and I will assume that with the dawn of this new strategy, particularly these two new strategies, I think Nomzamo highlighted that it's two strategies which make this whole launch different from the previous one, because these two strategies are supposed to really catalyze your aspirations and ambitions on this new gender policy. Would you say this is what is going to be the game changer?
Well, precisely, I think it will. It will. I think mainly because the new gender policy is bringing in certain other dimensions that were not there previously, because we've also seen emerging issues. Climate change issues are now taking another shape. We've seen women in trade.
All of that is
all of that is in that new policy. So women in trade, because we're seeing that majority of issues that we're seeing in that gender-based violence is because a lot of our women are dependent on a spouse, dependent on a breadwinner, who turns out then to be a violator also and an abuser. And then you find that they stay in relationships because they have nothing else to do. It's a livelihood issue. It's a situation whereby if I take him to the police and they're going to arrest him, how am I going to survive? How about the children? So she thinks about all of those things and then decides, I will stay in this relationship. And you find that 10 years later, then she may come out to say, I've been in an abusive relationship because of this kind of. But now, if you take the approach of saying, we need to empower, people need to be economically independent, then people are not going to stay in a relationship just for the sake of. They want to stay because they want to stay in a relationship. So that we do away with this kind of behavior that to say we can control someone because we have economic muscle and so on and so forth. So we need to work on all of those things.
Is there probably a point where it addresses HIV? Because I will remember that at some point, just a few years ago, Eswatini was pronounced as having the highest prevalence of HIV in the world, with 27.3% of adults living with HIV. And I do remember Kanya Mabuza, who is now the PS for Health, mentioning that affluent men taking advantage of young girls, particularly in tertiary institutions, are exacerbating this thing, whereby they also now abuse these young girls, which trickles down to gender-based violence. Are you addressing this as well?
Yes, we actually have a thematic around the policy which speaks to sexual reproductive health and HIV and AIDS, because I think, again, as you said, rightly put it, that we've seen that the power dynamics I play here, where you see affluent men, which is people who are in the working age, and then you see younger population, rather adolescents and the young people who economically we know they are probably dependent on their families and so on and so forth. So these men probably tend to have this intergenerational relationships with these young people. And it becomes a bit of a problem when you see high HIV prevalence under older men, and then you see other younger girls. So you can tell the relationship. It's not a good picture.
And it's quite interesting, Mr. Masuku, the socialization aspect of things. Just being dependent at home for a living as a young girl during our time was different, because you really needed the money to buy probably food. But now these girls want to buy your Peruvian weaves, they want to buy all these things they see on Instagram. So it's quite an interesting dimension, and I'm hoping that with this strategy and the policy, you're really focusing on all these things that have changed socially. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mr. Mbendelo Masuku, Monitoring and Evaluation under the Deputy Prime Minister's Office, just giving us, a brief highlight of the implementation of the gender policy that is being launched today, with its two strategies that will catalyze it, just addressing the issue of gender-based violence, really, that has been prevalent within Eswatini for a sustained period of time. Let's go for a quick ad break. We'll wrap up the show with Lungelele.
are they yours?
Ngabukela ke washa umkhukhu every Sunday at 3 p.m.
It's 2 minutes before 8 o'clock. We've come to the end of our show this morning. Smakhona ukuthi nibe nathi namhla ekseni. Makhona ke nikubukela hlelo on our YouTube Eswatini TV page. Ngizela kahle, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a lovely day.
Patsel Jazz Makat. Yeah.
Phela makhaya inkosi nangabe phela udukhohliwe timbe patakho buye eceleni. Awubuye eceleni phela thina sijeke emsebentini awungeke phela. Ukhohlela le ID nale nombolo yokuvota. Lele basifakele yona phela la tincingweni. Ha, ngibonini. Buye eceleni inkosi yathi ngijeke emsebentini kwani mina. Hayi wena msawumnye ngathi igaba lesithathe hamba phela inkosi itithi nyalo. Sigaba secala tasihamba i-voter validation. Lapho khona sithi hamba uye emphakathi wangakini uyohlolisisa ukuthi le mininingwane lowayibhala ingiyo yini nendzawo la tovotela khona. Niyokahle kahle nje sithi lapho konje hlolisisa imininingwane yakho nathi sibambisane ukuthi imininingwane yakho ibhaleke kahle yini. Nani. Hayi phela lokho kutawondeka lebo 22 June kuyale ku 12 July. Yebo bese ke sigaba lesilandzelako nomination coach lapho khona kubheka ukuthi ngenkundla inominate lokungenani bantu labacela 3 kuya ku 20 kuze ke umuntu anqonye kufuneka lokungenani abe nemavoti la 10. Ngiyahleka yini mfana babe ngoba ngithi nje lekhaya selisenzo ngitawungena nje ngigijima nonyaka simfaka umuvu lokakake wasendela lutho asimfaka acela ama projects ngokuya phuma ecoach. Yanti lathi indzaweni kulama communities thina sifayisana nema problems embamba sithi ngama solution bamba. Yebo coach. Hayi kahle phela benguye kulandzela yena mkhulu ngicela ufaka yena. Yebo bekacela ukuthi ngimbambele kulandzela yena. Bese ke sigaba lesilandzelako sengama primary elections. Wona ke lama primary elections atawondeka lebo 26 August 2023 phela coach. Bese ke lokulandzelako sengama secondary elections lapho khona wona tawuthatha lebo 29 September 2023. Ngiyahleka yini mfana babe ngoba lamkhathi seningoma primary nalama secondary kutabe kune campaign process lokusho ukuthi umuntu ufuna kathi tshengisa ukuthi wakhiwe ngani sitawufa abakabishi nani okulandzela mina ngiyabonga sisi.
Lo mlayeto nolethelwa baka EBC Elections and Boundaries Commission of Eswatini.
Libandla letela ukhefo nemingcele iEBC latisa sive semaswati ukuthi mhla ka 26 Ingci 2023 lilanga